What's going on, fam? Back again. See, here's the thing. In this climate that we live in, it's been a lot of people talking about segregation. Uh, for instance, voluntary segregation, which for you guys that don't know, is basically just moving to a community or associating yourself with people that are like you. For instance, here in the Detroit area, we have a city called Dearborn, and Dearborn has the highest concentration of Middle Eastern people outside of the United States. I mean, excuse me, outside of the Middle East. We've got other communities. We've got Mexican Town, you got Chinatown and all that stuff. So what we're gonna do today, fam, is we're gonna talk about it. Yes or no. Do we side with voluntary segregation or are we against it? So start with B.
Hola.
Yeah. Where do you stand on voluntary segregation? Do you agree with it or you don't agree with it?
Um, that was a tough one, but I would have to say if I had to just pick a side, I'm gonna be against it because again, we're in America. This is the quote unquote melting pot. I don't know how true that is anymore, but that was the belief I was
So
sold.
why you saying it then? Do you don't believe it?
No, I think we should all be integrated because that's the country that we're built on. I get we do have our Dearborns, and that was established, and you got Mexican Town, and you got other smaller areas where groups do coordinate, but it's still in the bigger picture. We're in a country, and then you look at it on a political scale. Another reason why I don't feel like I'm pro for it because I mean, you got a city and a state, you got X amount of people there, whereas you got power on the smaller scale, but when you need federal funding for X, Y, and Z, can that small community secure that in a whole state scheme?
Well, but you know what? Here's what I'll say about Dearborn. We know we've grown up that and the
Yeah.
community is huge,
Hmm.
but they are a self-sustaining city where they get things done. And from a political standpoint, they got power. We saw in the last election, unfortunately, they sided with Trump.
Who?
Now look what happened. They're regretting it. But I say that to say, them voting the way that they did, they helped Trump take the state.
Fair point. Fair point.
So I mean, when I think that when you do have, voluntary segregation, there are pros and cons.
Hmm.
But, Carl, I'm gonna ask you, because I know we talked about it. When it comes to voluntary segregation, what side of the street are you on?
I love Brandon's rose-colored glasses that he looks through. I'm gonna get a pair one day. He said a couple of things. He talked about um, being sold that this country should be a melting pot. Um, I don't know who came up with that term. We probably have to look that up because
It was a
this
white
is,
person, I'm sure.
I'm sure, because it was a melting pot for them. It's never
I
been
like
a
that.
melting pot for Black people. I've always, and I've used this reference before. I think on the pod where I was given a reference of the United States being a salad bowl because really you have individual components all mixed together, supposedly trying to make one harmonious dish. But that doesn't always work too, because you can put something in a salad and mess the whole thing up.
I love a good Caesar, but continue.
I mean, and I do too. But some people don't like anchovies. So
Some people don't like getting their salads tossed,
that
but that's another show.
we
I'm sorry.
okay.
oh
We're
god.
gonna circle back. So the other thing you said was about the political power, and I'm glad Eugene brought that piece up because I was going to go there too.
Hmm.
Because if you are in a segregated area, town,
Hmm.
city, if everybody in that area is collectively thinking along the same page, they do have power because that is a concentration of power.
Okay.
So Dearborn being an example, just like Eugene said, we look at it as, this large Arab American population. Well, Trump came to that Arab American population and used them to speak for the Arab American population basically in the country. So Dearborn, one city that's in Wayne, not even the largest city in Wayne County, because that's
Mhm.
Detroit, not even the second largest city in Wayne County. But it won the county, it helped win the state. So if it was a black thing, we would have that same power. We talk about all the time, like, well, they don't listen to us. They come and they take our information and they, we get to sing and dance and yada yada yada. But they'll bring Meg Thee Stallion and all this stuff. And you hear all that kind of craziness, but at the same time, it's like you have a concentration of power if you were to use it.
So do you think then we as a people could take a cue from the Arab American population in Dearborn when it comes?
Or is that the exception and not the rule? Because Dearborn is, like you said, a large concentration of X amount of people in X spot. But where is the Filipino situation to that?
Okay. Well, here's the thing.
Chinese situation to
And I
that.
want to stay on Dearborn for those of you who are in Michigan. If you know Detroit area, you may know this. And this is before your time, B. So there was a mayor in Dearborn, Mayor Hubbard, Orville Hubbard.
I remember that name.
He was a mayor for 36 years, from 1942 to 1978. So you got to think about everything that happened between 42 and 78, the type of mindset he had. Black people were not allowed to live in Dearborn.
Bingo.
During his administration. He fought against it, actively fought against it. And when Detroit had their first black mayor, Coleman Young, come into office in 73, he basically told black people, stay out of Dearborn. Don't even go spend your money there. If you can't live there, if you can't stay away from there. So I grew up as a little kid thinking Dearborn was not a place for me. At that time, it was a large concentration of, I'll say this and not meaning it the way it sounds, but white power. You know what I'm saying? And some of it was white power. But
Gotcha.
now, as the Arab American population has grown, and they become to settle there, you go into Dearborn and just about everything is in English and Arabic. And it's different. So now you have a whole different concentration of the mayor of the city is an Arab American.
Yep.
The police chief is an Arab American. So the whole dynamic of the city is shifted. So I think that black people can do the same thing.
See, I'm glad that you brought up Hubbard and what he did in terms of excluding us from being able to move to the city, because we had the Fair Housing Act that was passed back in '68. And basically, it was saying that you can't discriminate from a housing standpoint because of race, creed, color, the whole nine.
No redlining.
And I think it was supposed to get rid of redlining. But then in '88, they amended it to include disabilities and familiar or family structure, basically. And I say all that to say that even though they had the Fair Housing Act that passed, you still had communities that were circumventing that process, i.e. Hubbard.
Because you said 68, he was mayor till 78.
Yeah.
That's a 10-year stretch.
So he still did what he wanted to do.
Did what he wanted to do.
You darkies can't come here. And to Mayor Young's credit, rest in peace, Mayor Young, he did what he thought was best for the city of Detroit, and he will forever be the greatest mayor Detroit has ever seen. Nobody will be able to touch that, good and bad. Because
he was definitely the blueprint going forward.
So I mean, I think that even though when we talk about voluntary segregation, I think it started as forced segregation. So what the government did was they put us all together, whether it was housing projects or going all the way back to the '40s with redlining. They wouldn't give us housing loans. We couldn't do any of that. So I think that as that started to get a little better, we continued to say, you know what, I want to stay here. So now you got, groups that are concentrated together, and it's generations that have been in the same area. I'm against voluntary segregation, because I think that there are too many variables that affect the groups that are voluntary segregating themselves. So B, let me ask you, do you think that, let's take from an educational standpoint, what is your stance on voluntary segregation and how it affects, those that are there in education? students?
Segregated education. I mean, I kind of saw it going to school because, again, schooling for me technically appears segregated. I didn't go to school. There weren't a lot of black students in engineering or STEM programs. So
Mhm.
out the gate, I was already in a segregated education. Did it harm me or hurt me? Did it positively influence me? No, because I was there for what I needed to do. But again, there's a lack of, hey, we look alike, let's study together. So you are kind of in that type of silo when you
Okay.
have that environment versus
I'm
I have
I'm I'm thinking more so the segregated neighborhood,
a
the neighborhood
neighborhood.
schools. For instance, Carl, when we grew up, our elementary school was a couple of blocks away.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Even with middle school,
Mm-hmm.
we took the bus or whatever the case may be. But I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I see is notice how those schools do not perform as well as
Yeah.
the schools in the suburb.
And lack of
You're looking
funding.
at lack of funding, and not to mention, when you don't have the resources that the other schools have, sometimes I have to imagine, I don't think I ever felt this way, but I have to imagine some kids felt defeated. You come to school, you
Yeah.
may have teachers that are invested, you may have teachers that are not invested as you as a student, but again, looking at the area, you're in a,
Mm-hmm.
a, a, a a segregated area. Your neighbor's black. Over next door they black. Across the street they black.
Yeah.
Y'all
Stronger.
like black things, all things black. So, I think that it limits, the educational opportunities.
Well, yeah, and that's where I come back to where I was in the beginning. Like, I feel like that segregated school has lack of access to this government funding, federal funding, because you're kind of in that silo too. And like you said, the suburban
Well, not to
schools,
mention local, because
yeah,
your tax base is going to give you,
X,
some additional funding when it comes to school. So,
yeah, and
But,
there's a lot of factors that go into it, but
but I
that's
think
all.
when you talk about that, you're looking at segregation from a lens of what we've seen, not of what could be. Because when you talk about education, we'll stay on education. If you talk about that, if, for example, we know, like you said, your tax base is going to feed into your local districts, which is going to provide you resources for education.
Mm-hmm.
We've looked at segregation as all the black folks living together have the same economic power, pretty much. They're all pretty much in the same economic
Yeah, same
class.
playing field, yeah.
Okay. Whereas if you go to a wealthier suburb, you've got people who are obviously doing a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So they can pay more into taxes. If you have a base of people who are integrated also financially, your tax base can increase.
True.
Your access to educational funding can also increase.
Donations to schools.
Well, not only just donations, but I'm talking about like public education. So your tax base is good. So if you work in a factory and you live next to a doctor and a lawyer is across the street and the guy down the street is a carpenter, okay, we've got different variables of education. We've got different variables of income, but also we have a commonness of we all look alike.
Mm-hmm.
We all have the same goals. We all want our children to achieve more. So we're going to be able to put more into it. And to me, a teacher in those areas who's going to be in those areas will be able to vet those teachers who are for our kids and are against our kids. So you're not going to have somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in your child. If you know that everybody in this area has a common goal. We're not just segregated because we've been put there. We
Yeah, it's by
voluntarily
choice,
said
yeah.
this is what we want to do. So we're going to be invested in making sure that our kids get the best education.
so do you see any traction as opposed to the way things are now, as seeing how they could be? Do you see any traction going in that direction?
See, that's the problem. I guess the simple answer would be no. And I think that it's because of the variables that you guys were talking about. A lot of people will look at it and say, well, if it's just us, we're not gonna get this. We're not gonna
Mm-hmm.
have access to this. And then, there's some people who, and I don't want this to sound like I'm,
Man, we gotta
anti-white.
apologize.
Say
No,
it.
because I'm not. I'm not. I'm
Speak your
not.
mind, my
Yeah,
friends. Speak
but
your mind.
but there are some people who say, basically in their mind, and they may even say it, I can't live without the white man. I can't. How can I do this? We supposed to be together and we supposed to love one another and everybody's supposed to. Yes,
So is that from a harmonious standpoint, or is that from that whole codependency thing?
it's codependency masked as being harmonious.
Okay.
That's what I feel.
Okay, I like it. I can take that.
Because you can always put on the mask and say, you know, I love you, want to love one, and you know, just like I got white friends, and that's fine. and it is. There are, it's Muhammad Ali had this whole thing when he was doing an interview. He said, you say it's good white people out there. I got to go through all of these other white people
Yeah.
to find the good white people.
Gotta
I mean, you know
filter.
what I'm saying? It's like, and I know they are. So they should come to the front. You know what I'm saying?
Any
I shouldn't have to
volunteers?
weave through
The other ones
to
ain't
pick
gonna
out
let
the
us.
one.
Hey, stay
And
back
that's
there.
the thing. I need the good white people to come to the front. And the same thing. If we are together, we'll know who the bad black people are.
Yeah.
Because if
we all
if
got
I live
bad
here,
apples.
I got a doctor, I got a little, we all, hey,
It's
I'll
a
keep my
thief.
property up,
Yeah.
whatever. When there's somebody in the neighborhood that ain't doing, we'll take care of them. We will. Because in the hood, you know who the criminals are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know who the criminal,
Mm-hmm.
because that's somebody's child. You saw that kid when they were 6, and you pretty
You
much
knew
knew.
then.
Yeah, I'm
You
gonna say
knew
you knew.
then.
You
Yeah.
knew.
Now they're 16, and your car come up missing,
Mhm.
and you see them with some new shoes on the next.
That's a bad trade, but
But
But you know what?
we never said they were the
and-
smartest.
Yeah, you touched on something too, Carl. I talk like, for instance, when we look at, I saw a study done by the Urban Institute, and the numbers that they came off the study were in all white neighborhoods, or majority white, 75% people white. Okay, we black folks 8%
Mhm.
in a predominantly white neighborhood.
Sound
Carl,
about
to your
right.
point, when we talk about our neighborhoods, 45% black, 35% white, and non-black.
Mm.
So we, have the opportunity to have that quote unquote melting pot. But when it's flipped on the other side, they don't want us there. And you think about, the narrative behind that. For instance, I don't know if you guys noticed or not. I had a course back in undergrad called The History of Michigan. So just the easy A. One of the things that I found this fascinating, they talked about when they started building suburbs, when redlining and things of that nature. Notice there are very few suburbs, the older, matured suburbs, that have sidewalks. That's by
yep.
design. They don't want you walking out there.
Mm.
So if you out there, you got a car when you get around.
Interesting, yeah.
So, I mean, you think about all these things that were put into play, so that we wouldn't feel welcome to come, out to the suburbs, to move out there, and then when we talk about voluntary segregation, one of the issues that comes up too is the economic disparities. Because you live in an all black neighborhood, my house is not worth what my white counterpart's house is worth, because
Mhm.
it's all of us. So you're talking about lower home values, limited employment opportunities, not to mention, and this is one thing that I thought about too, when we talk about things like mass transportation. In the city, try to catch that bus if you want to. You can't, the buses don't run on a schedule. But in the suburbs, they have the smart system, which is a bus system, famous a bus system in the suburbs. And I don't know about around the country, but here in Michigan, the city bus, suburb bus, two totally different things. So, there are a lot of things that, are against, people when they're voluntary segregating themselves, I think.
But you say that again, you're looking at it from the lens of what is now, because
Okay.
suburban living was voluntary segregation.
Well, let me ask this too, Carl, because we're in the Detroit area. Are we already voluntarily segregated in Detroit? And then why isn't that like your Dearborn situation?
I-
Because that's a huge
Okay.
concentration of us in Detroit versus a Dearborn.
I
Other
no, you
bordering
go ahead, 'cause
cities.
I-
I was going to say, because when you look at Detroit, first of all, look at the average income, which I believe is probably what, maybe 40,
In the city,
Yeah.
remember we said it was well that was the average.
So
The mean was 26,000. What was that
Yeah, I see
thing
if
we
I can
saw?
pull it real quick.
Yeah,
See if
but
I can ask Google.
yeah, I would say 40 something maybe.
that's good living.
I didn't say. I just
I
said
mean,
where
and
we
my thing would
segregated
be
there. I didn't say about
voluntary.
income.
Okay, but when you say voluntary, B, what I'm thinking is, okay, I can go and move anywhere I want to. A lot of people in the city don't want to be in the city, but that's all they can afford. They can't cross 8 Mile.
Okay, and again,
Interesting.
I have to go back to the 70s when I was a kid. It was right after the 67 riots,
Mhm.
which is still studied around the country today. It was one of the most. It was the most, I think, still violent urban uprising in this country's history. A lot of people moved either to the outskirts of the city or out of the city altogether.
Mhm.
That was voluntary segregation on their part, on the parts of white people. They said, we're going to get away from this. Black people who were left in the city either chose to rebuild, chose to stay, or figured, like you say, Eugene, I can't move. I can't afford to move to the suburbs because of my income status. Now, going into the 70s, I saw Black people doing relatively well.
Yeah, incomes rose.
You know, income was fine. I mean, it was a lot of factory jobs going on. People were really working. People
Yeah.
had neighborhoods. You could go into all Black neighborhoods on the east side and the west side of the city the homes were very nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the big three were thriving, and so were we at that point.
Yep. Now, things started to take a downturn into the 80s. Some of those people died. Kids didn't maintain the homes.
Mhm.
Other people lost their homes. Crack happened. It was a whole lot of factors. Yeah, it was a lot of factors. So things started to downturn again.
Mhm.
So now we're looking at it into the 90s and to present day.
Yeah, take it up
That's
to
when you
08.
say
Yeah,
people are saying, well, I'm trapped here. I can't go because what the city looked like in the early to mid 70s is very different than what it looks like today. So now you've got people who kind of wish they could afford more. But then you have people that are the same. The children of the people who left in the late 60s and 70s are coming back into the city, buying a property at a cheaper rate. And then that's what we call gentrification.
Boom. And that's where we go full circle, because now what you see is the folks that were in the city, us, in some areas, we can't afford to live in the city.
Absolutely not.
Because of the white flight, them coming back to the city, Midtown.
Property values are up.
Property values
Big
are
time.
sky high.
And there
2x.
is a method to the madness. Some people see it. There's a very small section of Detroiters, African Americans, that see what's going on. But there are areas that, Carl, we grew up 12th Street. We knew what it was. You go down there now, my God.
Now, you have 12th Street was where the riot started.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a kid,
12th and Blaine, all in that area.
I go down 12th Street, and I didn't realize that it used to be businesses there. It was just like tracts of land. I didn't realize this is where all the businesses were that burned down during the riot. I just thought it was tracts of. So when they started rebuilding it, as a kid, I'm like, oh, they're building this, they're building this. And then I would see pictures of 12th Street.
Oh, what happened?
And I'm going like, oh, this is what it used to look like?
Virginia Park. I remember when they broke ground over there.
All of that. And it's like, but again, at that time, even when they started rebuilding it, they built that Farmer Jack over there, a whole nother complex. They built some new houses, single family homes, and a whole gated area. That was all Black people. Now I've gone over there, just kind of drive by because my grandparents had a house over there, so I would drive by, look at the house. House is still in great shape, but I'm looking like it's white folks jogging and pushing baby strollers and walking dog. I'm like, I never.
Yeah, 15 years ago in Detroit, you would never see that.
So
But
what
now
do we
the
do
norm.
about? I mean, because now we're stuck, and I don't necessarily think that that's voluntary segregation on white folks' part, but they're coming back to reclaim
Yeah.
what they once had.
And we're kind of okay. So to the point, we're okay with that if we live in those neighborhoods because yes, our property values will start to go up
Oh, yeah.
again because but my thing is if they didn't come back and our property values didn't go up, is that still a bad thing? If we feel safe and loved and wanted in our own communities.
But I think too, you have to have everything that comes with that. I'm a big proponent of, you have to make yourself happy. You're responsible for your own happiness. One of the things that you look at too with the voluntary segregated neighborhoods is there, in my opinion, it's not an opportunity to grow. Not necessarily culturally, but just on a global basis. If you're just around your people all the time and you have no type of interaction with anybody outside of your circle, from a cultural standpoint,
Yeah, you'll get
I
culture
think
shock.
that not only that, but I think it prohibits you. For instance, when I went into the military, it was in basic training. um, there were a couple of white guys in my platoon that had never dealt with black people.
Mhm.
Never.
Mhm.
And I thought that was the weirdest thing. We had to show them a couple of things, because they said some words that, we wasn't cool with. But I say that to say that, there are some people that are voluntary say they don't deal with other cultures until they go to college.
Yeah, same. That
Yeah,
was me.
I've
Yeah, I
seen,
grew up in
You
Detroit. I was
know,
DPS, and bam, what are you?
yeah.
exactly. So then what you have to deal with is, acclimating yourself to this, and I think too, one of the good things I know for me, you can develop critical thinking skills. Because hell, Carl, I didn't even know what critical thinking skills were until I got to college. And I
Mhm.
had that course, the philosophy course, you know. But again, I was just around us,
Mhm.
I think what it was one white person in our entire elementary school.
Yeah,
Shout
you
out to
had like one
Jonathan
or
Burton.
two.
I don't know
Yeah,
where he
yeah.
is now, but yeah.
Okay, so elementary school was different for me because the neighborhood that I lived in was on the well, across pretty much down the street was the city of Redford, which was another city that we were told not to go to.
Yep.
Beyond that was the city of Livonia, who we
Oh, you don't.
definitely
No, 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 no,
were
no,
told
no.
not to
That's
go
too
to.
far. That's
Yeah.
way too far.
But I lived in an area in Detroit that was bordered Redford, so there was still a fair number of white people in my neighborhood. Actually, the block we moved on to, there was a fair number of white people on that block until we moved in and some others, and they started
The
moving away.
darkies are here.
Say, wait a
However,
minute.
one of my best friends, even to this day, is a white guy, lived 2 doors down. Did we know, and I'm not one of those dumb people who's like, I don't see color. Did I know he was white and he knew I was black? Yeah. But it didn't matter. You know what I'm saying? It didn't, we had the same interests. We played together.
Yeah, he's
And
boys.
yeah, we was boys. I mean, nothing. We talk racially, about some things. Like, you can do that. I can't do that. Same thing, we ride our
Oh, you
bikes.
said racially. I was like, he ain't never used the N word.
Oh, no.
You ain't giving no pass?
No.
Okay,
Oh,
all
no.
right.
I don't believe in that.
Just had to
I
ask.
don't believe
Some
in that.
people throw it
But
out.
I mean, it was things like this. If we were riding our bikes, we would go like to Redford or whatever, and I would tell him, "Yeah, I can't stay out here. It's getting dark.
And he's like, why
I got to
not?
get back. I got to get back home because my mama told me I can't stay out." You know what I'm saying? And he was like, "Oh, okay, I get it. But it was no issues with that.
Yeah.
So with that, I kind of, I had no problems with white people. Now going to middle school, was there any?
No, it was a couple. Hell, the principal, Dr. Thornberry.
Yeah, the principal was. But the principal, but
teachers.
my elementary school principal was white.
He was cool too.
So I authority teachers and that, yeah, had white teachers, had white principals. I didn't think, but I'm saying my peers. There's a
Interesting.
couple maybe
In high school, I think I remember two female. Yeah, okay.
So there was not, but even with those people, they were amongst us. So
Mhm.
they knew how,
They knew how to navigate.
I was gonna say behave, but that's a better word. Navigate's a better word. So yes. So once you get outside of that, yeah, it can be some culture shock. However, I'm not saying that we don't. I think our parents and our adults, as you're growing up in a child, you're still going to be working outside of your area. You're still those
Yeah,
people are
true.
still going to. So it's still incumbent upon the adults to instruct kids growing up. This is how you behave, whether they're black, white, Chinese. It doesn't make a difference. This is how you're expected to behave, and this is the expectation you should have of how you're treated.
So when
So
go ahead, Carl. I'm sorry.
no, I'm just so if that happens, then like you said in your example, you knew what to say to those two dudes who, if they've never seen black people, guess what? They voluntarily segregated themselves, or their families did, from being around black people.
Mhm.
Because I think that one of the things that, to your point, Carl, when we're talking about voluntary segregation, and I'll ask you guys do you think that it could in some ways reinforce biases? For instance, Carl, you said, and same situation for me, you're not going in that neighborhood, don't go to that neighborhood. Hell, we grew up on the west side, same thing about the east siders.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I say,
Foreign
the
land.
the reinforcing the racial biases from a standpoint of being in the inner city, in the suburbs, I'm sure there were some myths. Of course, we, didn't go to the suburbs on a regular basis, but
Mhm.
I think when I think about conversations we had about suburbs, all I saw was white people. That was
Yeah.
it. If a black person, if I knew a black person that lived in the suburb, it was some ish in the game, you know. And I think that was probably
This one
my
crack
earliest
came.
venture into code switching. So I mean, I think that there are some, for instance, I'm not hanging around in Southwest Detroit, Mexican town, unless I'm going to a restaurant, and I don't think they want to leave outside because ICE might be.
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
That's more complicated.
Yeah, that's a
so
whole nother show.
That's a
so they
complicated.
so
That don't
it,
count, y'all.
I
That's a
I mean, I'm just saying that, do you think that if you are voluntarily segregating yourself, that you have to deal with a reinforcement of racial biases? B, what do you think about that?
I think so because just like you know what you know, right? And if you are voluntarily segregating yourself, you're gonna be siloed out. And what's outside of your silo is foreign to you, right? So again, let's say we isolate ourselves in Detroit. If I tell you another city, let's go to Novi, you gonna look at me like, I don't know about Novi. I don't know if they want us over there. And I think those situations, you go out there, you have a bad experience. What does it do? It reinforces my idea to stay where I segregated myself. So I think scenarios like that, and it's a bad thing too, because it's a big, huge world out here. Why do you just want to stay in your box? And I know it's nice as what you know is where we are, but it's a huge planet. So again, that's why I'm like, that's kind of a negative thing because it's too big of a world to be out here voluntary staying in one box when it's different states. Heck, Michigan is huge, right? So why do we have to stay in one area? There might be a store. It can go on college education. We got, if you take in Detroit, what colleges do we have in Detroit? We got a handful, but you want to go to U of M.
Shout out to Wayne State. So, but let me ask you
Which
then,
is deep in the
for
city.
your age group, your peers, do you guys have the same feeling collectively? I mean, are the majority of your people for or against voluntary
You got a mixed batch,
segregation?
honestly. I've got people that are like, hey, I want to stay in Detroit. I want to go downtown, Corktown, whatever. Then you got other people said, I'm doing all right. I'm about to hightail it to the suburbs.
Why is that though?
I'm doing all right. I want the big house in West Bloomfield or whatever.
They got big houses in Detroit.
You
You
want them
still
high?
want, I want to get out.
Okay, you want
And
them
there's other,
high ass taxes
well,
too.
yeah,
So
but I think you got that mixed batch of, if somebody falls in love with downtown, like again, went to school at Wayne State for a while. You got people that love the area. After school, they want to stay in the area, right? And you got other people that are, we're getting jobs working. I work out in X place in the suburbs. I like it out here. I'm gonna move out there. So I don't think there's one definitive because I feel like my generation and what is it, Gen Z is kind of scattered out, right? You can't really pinpoint us to one location right now or one idea. It's sporadic. It's going to change tomorrow and next week and next year. So I don't think you can pinpoint it, but I don't think it's going to be a voluntary segregated movement coming out of younger
See, so
generations.
with you saying sporadic, Carl, I just thought about something that kind of describes you guys, because it's hard for them to even pick a side of the street that they want to be on. So I have to wonder,
It's I think it's the information age because you're exposed to so much and see
Yeah.
so much. Because again, like you said, the neighborhoods that we grew up in, those were our neighborhoods. Those were basically our worlds until we got out in the real world and saw different things. But with you guys, with the younger generation particularly, you have a lot of, not only just social media, but you had a whole computer access. It's just a lot of different, avenues for you to see things. I think again, the biases. We're looking at this from a different lens. We're still looking at because let me put this out there. What are characteristics of if it's an all black neighborhood? What are the characteristics that you or stereotypes that could come to your head?
Increased crime, like I said before, schooling is in the toilet, high rates of depression, violence,
liquor stores,
anxiety, and now cannabis stores.
Okay.
Grocery stores you do have, they're jacking up the prices.
So those stereotypes, who believes those stereotypes? Or who espounds those stereotypes? It's black and white people. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now, do white people have stereotypes of their own neighborhoods?
Do they?
How would we know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They do. We don't know them.
Exactly. Because if they do,
yeah, they didn't tell me that.
They don't say anything. Because and if they don't say anything, I would think they don't. I think they just say if it's an all black area, it's crime ridden, drug infested, people are uneducated. And we'll say that too, which is why we'll say, well, we can't stay here. But if you have a white do they go out and they say, well, our neighborhoods are always clean and there's no crime and there's no no, because
they don't want us saying.
They've
Wait a
got
minute.
If you
let me come over there where you at
again, and I say Redford, and I keep using Redford because it's no longer Lily White. But even when it was, Redford was no place. It was no panacea. It was just.
It's more of a dirty white.
It was dirty. It was. I mean, it was just like
Manila.
It was. I
still got streets that aren't paved.
Yeah,
man.
I was just about to say that. You got dirt roads in Redford. You got houses with no driveways and that sit on a flat slab. I mean, it was nothing spectacular, but it was just white. You know what I'm saying? So if a white person, they're not going to come out and have these stereotypes about their neighborhood, but we will perpetuate the stereotypes about ours. They can say, and here's the thing: if they said, well, again, I'm using my same. We got a doctor, lawyer, factory worker. All these people are doing well. The kids are doing well. Everybody's well behaved. They're good in school. They're still going to say it's crime infested. It's dirty. It's this.
Well, yeah,
and we could turn around and say, well, everybody over there is racist and don't go. But we're not going to have the same. So I guess to answer your question too, I'm going to put all that out there.
Yeah,
but to answer your question, will there still be biases? Yeah. But I think that those biases, one, we have to stop perpetuating our own biases. We have to stop saying what we think this area is going to be because all black people live there.
Yeah, but you know what I think too, Carl, is that have to kind of step out of that comfort zone, because when you are voluntary, say you're comfortable with what's going on.
Yeah.
What's going to happen on that street versus what's happening on your street, So I think that that is going to require us to, just step out, because again, it's not bad when you get out there. But I think a lot of times, because they say, what's the saying? One apple can spoil the whole bunch, whatever. You got some grimy YNs in, these voluntary segregated neighborhoods. And I think in order to make that situation a better situation, you're going to have a collective. that's getting together. For instance, here in Detroit, we've got a group, New Era. They're doing some positive things. They're espousing, let's take the city back. Let's, buy black. Let's create our own, so on and so forth. So I think the idea, of voluntary segregation, the way it started, came from, a good thought. You think about Black Wall Street. Think about, Rosewood, other communities where they were all black and they were
Prior.
prospering,
Mhm.
but I think because voluntary segregation started off as involuntary segregation, there is a segment of our population that never got away from that. And I think some people just feel like I can't do any better. So let me just stay here.
Well,
And
even if
then you
it's
got the opposite too. Like again with your example, Carl, you're talking about say your generation, the neighbor of the doctor, the teacher, the lawyer, the plumber. Those are high income earning jobs, right? You flip that and put it in my generation now. And this is what the difference is again with that voluntary and involuntary segregation. You have my generation of doctors, lawyers, engineers, whatever high income earners that grew up in these highly concentrated, voluntary segregated communities by our parents and grandparents. We're leaving them now.
but why?
It's just been the choice. And again, it's like I say you have the YNs in that environment. You got the one guy says, I don't want to be around this. Let me go to way over there. And you got a lot of those high income earners that are shouting way out to suburbs past that red line because that's what they want.
I think that
And they are breaking that down that way.
the criminal element, and I'll go back to this, and we said it earlier, the criminal element in neighborhoods are known.
Mm-hmm.
These young people are not just dropped off here.
No.
We're known. So if everybody around you is a certain demographic, then chances are the young ones, they learned it from the older ones. And yes, can they be more grimy? Possibly, because they want to outdo
The
the
OGs.
OGs.
Unk.
So if that's your environment and that's your example, that's one thing. But if you have an example of like what you said, teachers and lawyers and professional people, they're not going to turn out criminals. They're going to turn out good young people.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
Those good young people, to your point, are saying, "Well, I'm leaving because I
Yeah,
got what I
that's
need
the
to get. I'm
trend.
leaving."
Yeah,
But what if those good young people stayed?
but they're not.
How do we get them to
But
stay though?
They're
and
not
that's the thing.
staying.
I
They want to
understand
go.
that, but that's what I'm saying. It's like your mind. How do you get them to stay? Because your mindset has to flip.
You got to
From I gotta get
incentivize
away.
them.
Okay,
Where's the incentives?
the incentive is being around people that you know care about you. You talked about this earlier, Eugene. Stress, high anxieties,
Depression.
depression. Who's gonna help you cope with those things other than people that love you, people that have seen you
Mm-hmm.
grow up? We talk about policing. We talked about that even when we had Officer Stokes, Sergeant Stokes on the show. If you have people that look like you in policing, rather than people that come in from outside of your area to bust you in the head, I, it- even if you got somebody that's a little thuggish, ruggish bone, he gonna know the cop that arrests him.
First name basis.
He's gonna know him, and that cop is gonna say, "Look here, man. I told you what was gonna happen
I'm tired of this,
if you
man.
kept this up."
Yep.
That
Community policing.
that kid's parents are gonna know that cop.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna know that their kid, even if their kid did wrong, he's gonna be treated fairly. He's gonna be, go through the justice system, whatever. You're not gonna be stressed out as you would with outside forces. Do you still have to go outside of your area to earn income? Quite possibly. So again, that might be a challenge when you're dealing with people that you weren't brought up with. But if you brought up enough with here's what we expect from you, here's what we know you're capable of, go out in the world and do that. You can always come back home and say, these are the people that encourage me to be who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Well, and I think too, we don't have enough young people that are doing that, because everybody now wants to get the bag, and I think that not being able to go back, because some people feel like they can't go back. They go back and they see how things have changed, and hey, I ain't. Come on, mama, we got to move you out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we have to do better, for ourselves. I think a lot of division in our community is what's, keeping us in what I think is a stagnant position. For the ones that do get out and that are successful, and you do want to come back, then you still have to deal with, you know, some people that are in the neighborhood. Oh, he think he better than us. That can be discouraging because I'm like, no, I'm trying to come back and help, but you
Mhm.
telling me I think I'm better than. No, that's not it at all.
Yeah.
We have one of our problems in our community, I think, is just this level of skepticism that is almost ingrained in us. It's a level of distrust. And Carl, to your point, growing up, you knew who the grimy thugs were in the neighborhood. You didn't trust them. And, for whatever reason, they was always trying to get over. And I never understood why the criminal element wanted to get over on their own people. That's
Proximity.
something that I don't get.
It's proximity, and which is why I don't like the term. I wanted to look this up, and I meant to look it up. When the term "black on black crime" became
Yeah, because it's white on white
became
crime.
because it's
It's
proximity.
we
Arab on
didn't
Arab
start that.
crime.
The
Mexican on
crime
Mexican
that people
crime.
are worried about, which is violent crime, robbery, rape, murder. Those things are proximity based and they're income based.
Yep.
So if wherever you got poor people who are in the same area, you're gonna have high rates of crime.
Bing.
Especially in the summertime when it get
Yeah.
hot.
I don't
Yep.
care what it doesn't, what color they are. It has no respect of color. But all of a sudden, this black on black narrative became, and then again, we perpetuate that we got to stop this black on black crime. And you live in a neighborhood where everybody, it's people who are homeowners. I've seen black people who are homeowners who have kept up their properties, who look, they're harmonious neighbors, and they're saying we got to stop this black on black crime. None of you all are criminals.
And see, the thing is though that because that narrative is out there, we're just regurgitating what we've heard
Exactly.
the white man say.
Exactly.
Well, why do you? And my thing is, when you hear somebody that's not black use that term, it's almost as if they feel sorry for us. And here's a bright idea. I don't give a damn. You don't need to feel sorry for me.
Yeah, no.
And it's almost like it puts us in a subservient role. We already, are behind the 8 ball.
Mhm.
But, I've never had a conversation with anyone where they, ask me about, black on black crime. Because I
Yeah, I don't
laugh
think
every
I
time
have
I hear
either.
it. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, what the hell is black on
I've
black
never
crime?
had a conversation about black on black
and
crime.
white people who have voluntarily segregated themselves do not, and I can tell you this, even though I haven't been in the meetings, but I can
I haven't been in the
99.9%
meetings.
assure you
They ain't invited you to the
that
cookout?
they don't sit around the table talking about what we're gonna do about white on white crime.
Mm-mm.
Crime is
No.
crime. So when something happens, they deal with it as an individual incident and they move on. We deal with it
No,
as
it
a
turns into a
systemic
mental
problem
health issue.
that affects everybody that's black. It's like that's not.
But what you will hear them say is when they're being interviewed on the news is, I never thought anything like that would happen here. Because you feel insulated from the crime. And
And then he was troubled. he
We
was
heard
struggling at
we
home.
heard it yesterday, the other day. It was another
Mass
mass shooting with a young man, and it's
Troubled at home.
troubled, and he had youth. He had problems in his youth, and yeah, you never hear that narrative about Dante.
mm-mm.
No,
Dante
he came
was
out the womb a thug, a
he
killer.
came
Come
out
from
a
a
thug.
single home,
You
a
see
single parent home.
I saw a picture of the young white man who did this shooting, killed 2 people, shot some other people. He was smiling.
Of course.
Whenever you see one of us,
Mugshot,
hair stand all up over his head, he looks like a wild man. It's like we don't.
They say find the best picture you
The
can.
narratives are so different, and we, like you said, Eugene, it's like we go, oh no, oh. They don't. I haven't been in the meetings, but I don't see them sitting around the table going, "Oh, what are we going to do about these school shootings? And what are we going to do?" it's an isolated incident. They'll say that this is an isolated incident.
Yeah.
There's no more. There's
To
no
let
danger.
you know it's safe in my neighborhood.
Yeah, it's no danger to the public. We've handled this. But
A
when
troubled
it's
individual has
but
been
when it's
detained.
one of us,
all of us.
it's all of us, and they're arresting 20 people. You know, you get 20 people get arrested. You know, they'll say, you know, well, 18 have been released. Why you arrest 20 people?
We just had to, you know, the suspects.
You know, and
it looked like him.
Exactly, and it's a whole nother
fit the description.
So I can't.
Black.
I just want us to look at voluntary segregation through the lens of, you know, if you want to. And here's the thing: you all want to be white, they do it. Why can't we do it?
You know, and I think too, Carl, that's an interesting take because I didn't know, you know, when we talked about doing the show, you know, which way we were going to go in terms of. So yeah, I mean, hell, I would love to see it done in the right way, you know, but right now, all we have to go on is historical, you know, what we've done in the past, you know. So I think it's going to take, you know, everybody, a collective, to come up with, you know, some prudent ideas of how we can move forward. Because again, you know, whether it's our community, whether it's Arab, Mexican, Latinos, Chinese, whatever the case may be, you know, we all are having some of the same issues, you know, but I think some groups are having better success than others. So maybe we can take a look at, you know, how they're modeling and, you know, work after that. But again, I say, we as a people, we got to get rid of this divisiveness, the skepticism that we have, the distrust amongst ourselves. And that's one of the things that I fight against. It's like, how can we come together as a people if you always got somebody in the back that's causing strife and whispering in somebody's ear, man?
There's
really
always one, unfortunately.
But I think that person in the back that's causing strife is a spy. Because look, we can have
be a spy.
Because we can have disagreements.
Yeah.
If you're upfront with me and you tell me this is how I think, and I can tell you this is how I think, look, black men know well, I haven't been here in a while. I don't think Gene has either. But you go to barbershop.
Hey,
barbershop hey man, you know, come on. But
okay,
barbershop discussions can get heated.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, let's say somebody from a white dude or
Kobe
whatever
versus LeBron
walked into a black barbershop, you would think it's about a fight about to break up. Because those discussions can get heated.
Passionate.
Yeah,
and at the end of the and once it goes back and forth, at the end of all right, man, I'll see you next week. Yep. And we're good.
Because you're going to have another point.
Yeah.
that you want to say next week when you come back.
Somebody sat there the whole time and listened. They didn't say a word. The next week, different discussion. Oh, they'll have a whole lot to say.
Time to shine.
Yeah. So it's those type of thing. I think what happens is our distrust and our divisiveness comes from when people are trying to spy, basically. They're going to bring outside ideas in and then go back and say, well, you know what they said, they don't like the white guys, and you know I think they racist, so I'm gonna
plant that seed and then they move on.
Yeah, they plant the seed and again. Third time, I'm not in the meetings, but I don't think white people do that. White people do not sit around and say, you know, well, we're going to do this, and I don't think that the blacks have to know about it. And then there's a one white guy that goes back to the black people. You know, they've been talking about you. They don't worry about that. They don't worry about because
they got the upper hand.
I can see what you don't say, and we have to be able to say, I can disagree with you, and I can still love you, and I can still respect you. That's our problem.
And not hold that grudge.
That's a problem that we have. Yeah. Right. That's a problem that we have, particularly in the political climate now.
Oh, yeah.
We're having a big issue with that. But even with black people, I can disagree with you, and I can disagree with everything you're saying. But you got the right to say that. You know, and I respect your right to say that, and you stand on that.
Yeah, I could tell you the sky is blue or green.
Right. Or the earth is flat.
Oh Lord, there we go.
Now we're not gonna talk long, but you know, I'm gonna let you have that, and I'm gonna walk away. But I don't want you teaching my child
the flat Earth theory.
Right?
You might talk about that.
You know, you talk to Mr. Johnson, he might teach you how to cut the grass, but don't talk to him about nothing else. So that's the kind of, but I mean,
Yeah.
we have to be able to have that collect. That's the problem, that it's displayed that we don't have. Well, we don't have,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you know,
it's a true truth in our community. I think too that, when we talk about voluntary segregation, it's your choice, fam, where you want to live. But I think it's important to know too that there are pros and cons. And one of the cons that I continue to think about is it can create voluntary segregation can create broader societal consequences that will take a lifetime to get over. So again, if it's done the right way, I'm all for it, but we've got to have a blueprint and something that we can go through, something that we can say, okay, this is our goal, we're going to try and attain it. So fam, we're gonna say thanks for watching this episode. We do want to remind you as well to check out the YouTube page, share it, like it, subscribe as well. And as always, we want to say stay prayerful, stay peaceful, stay positive, stay patient. See you guys next time.